2023 was an epic year for C#, .NET and Windows developers. There's been a bunch of controversy, there's been a bunch of updates to the framework, there's been new apps, amazing articles and tutorials, and in this video I'm going to summarise the best of 2023 within 10 minutes for your viewing pleasure. I'm going to start my best of 2023 awards off by being slightly selfish and focusing on this channel first. So this year I've released 52 videos, and out of this selection, these 5 have been the most watched. So in number 1, my most viewed video was the best ChatGPT extension for Visual Studio 2022. In this video, I reviewed the most downloaded ChatGPT extensions for Visual Studio and gave you a review on which one was the best. Now, funnily enough, my second most popular video was the best ChatGPT extension for Visual Studio Code in 2023. Now, this video is very similar to the first one, however, this time around, it's aimed at VS Code. In third place, we have Edge Functions, Netlify versus Cloudflare Workers versus Vercel. In this video, get an unbiased review on which hosting platform provides the best edge function creation and management experience. My fourth most popular video was actually a Contentful development guide. So this video is all about how to use the Contentful SDK, API and app framework. So if you're interested in learning how to get started with Contentful, check that one out. And finally, in 5th position is the best Next.js hosting provider, Netlify versus Vercel versus GitHub Pages. Again, another unbiased review on which hosting provider gives you the most amount of features for hosting your JavaScript website. Okay, so hands up, there were a few videos there which weren't technically .NET related. However, 2023 has been an amazing year for C#, .NET and basically Windows fanboys. Now in this section, we're going to look at some news and some updates, and we're going to start off with the most controversial .NET news this year. So I'm assuming most watchers have heard of the package called Mock before. It is the most popular mocking framework on .NET by far. It was released in 2011, so it's a staple, and basically if you're doing unit testing in .NET, it's likely you're making use of this package. Now the controversy around this package came around a few months ago, because basically Mock added something called SponsorLink, and SponsorLink basically scrapes your Git email address and phone number in the background. Now, as you can imagine, and you can also read from the outrage on Reddit, that a lot of people were not happy about this. They wanted to boycott Mock and basically said it was evil. Now, if this is the first time that you're hearing about this news and you're now panicked because you use Mock, you don't need to worry. Basically, the creator saw the error of his ways, he removed SponsorLink, so the scraping doesn't happen anymore. Now, as a developer, I use NuGet packages, NPM packages all the time. And for me, this story just highlights the importance of having some sort of automated vulnerability scanner within your software development lifecycle. Now, just in terms of updates and news from Microsoft, this year they have smashed it. So obviously, first off, we've got .NET 8, so released in November 2023. With it comes C# 12 and a bunch of new features. Now, it is also probably worth me pointing out that if you're interested in learning more about .NET 8, then head over to my YouTube channel and you can see I've recorded videos on AOT, interceptors, primary constructors, as well as an overview about C# 12 in general. So I recommend looking at all those videos because I guarantee you're going to learn something new. So aside from its features, the big important thing to understand about .NET 8 is that it's a long-term supported version. This basically means that if you're using .NET, you should upgrade to this version because you're going to be supported for years to come. Now, alongside our .NET 8 release, we've also got Visual Studio 17.8, and in it, we've got a few new features which are definitely worth knowing about. Now, again, I've recorded a video all about this, so I recommend you check that out because there's going to be some useful features that you'll get at your fingertips for doing nothing. So just in terms of software vendors who create .NET software, I think Umbraco has smashed it this year and it's definitely worth calling out. So Umbraco has released version 12 and 13 of their CMS, Now, I've created a video which you can see linked to now if you want to learn more about the features, but some highlights include the ability to create headless websites with Umbraco using the Content Delivery API, webhooks. You can create blocks and pages in new, unique ways using some new property types. We've got updates to forms, hosting, and there's also a new fairly interesting commerce offering. And aside from all these current releases, they've made good progress on the next release where they're going to rewrite the back-end API. So that is a lot of software to release in a single year's. Kudos to them. Now, next up is another pretty controversial update this year, and this time it was made by Microsoft. So in April, Microsoft announced it's no longer doing Visual Studio on a Mac. Now this seems quite odd because there was a point at .NET 5, .NET 6, we had minimal APIs, we had a bunch of stuff targeted towards Mac, and it really did seem that Microsoft were trying to pinch those JavaScript developers and entice them into .NET. However, that looks like it's no longer the case, and if you want to do .NET with Mac, you're either going to have to use Rider or potentially the brand new C# Dev Kit. And we're going to finish the news with a little bit of positivity. So according to Visual Studio Magazine, C# is growing in popularity at the moment, and within the next few months, or 2024 at least, C# is going to overtake Java in terms of popularity according to the TOB Index of Programming Language Popularity. So 2 months' time, Java is going down. The next category is focused on the most interesting, thought-provoking and useful articles written for developers in 2023. Now, I got the inspiration for this list from the most clicked on articles within my free Sunday newsletter. So in case you weren't aware, there's a link below. You can sign up and get a weekly update about .NET and programming. I recommend you check it out. However, for now, let's focus on the most read articles this year. Now, by far the most read article from my newsletter was a Reddit post which is called Saying Goodbye to Stack Overflow. And I'm thinking this article will be able to resonate with most people who've used Stack Overflow. Because if you've ever used Stack Overflow and you've asked a question and it's been closed, or you've been told you need to structure it better or give better examples, and instead of actually getting an answer, you just get a bunch of negativity, you're going to relate to this article and it's worth a read. The second article that I recommend that you check out is called On Homemade Tools. Now, when it comes to solving a problem, there's a temptation among developers to build something custom. And this article looks into the classic build versus buy debate. Now, in the article, the author talks about his practical experience creating homemade tools and comparing if they actually add more value than existing off-the-shelf solutions. The third most clicked on link within my newsletter was the How Async Await Really Works in C# by Stephen Toub. Now, this was released on the Microsoft blog, and hopefully you can see I'm scrolling here, but this isn't really going down much. So this is a massive article. It's going to take you about 25 to 30 minutes to read. It is absolutely massive. So you can see it as I'm scrolling down. But the great thing about this is that this goes into complete depth of how async await works in .NET. So regardless if you're new to .NET or if you've been using .NET for 10, 15 years, you're going to learn a lot from reading this article. The next article is called The Worst Programmer I Know, and it's a quick 4-minute read, which might give you some food for thought around how you think about productivity. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything for you. However, an interesting thing is that if you're spending a lot of your time focusing on others and making sure that the team's successful, then by your company's definition, you might be terrible at productivity. The next article is worth reading for anyone who uses Entity Framework, and it's called Entity Framework Features I Wish I Knew About Earlier. And in this article, Tim here goes into some of the lesser known features of Entity, which might make your life a lot easier. Definitely worth a read for anyone who makes use of Entity Framework. The next article is called As I Get Older, I Just Don't Care About New Technology. Now, this is a Reddit post, and you can see its popularity, 900 upvotes, 400 comments, and if you've ever found drained about having to learn a new technology rather than just implementing a new feature, give this a read. And the final article that I wanted to share here was called Every Programmer Should Know Number 1 Idempotency. So again, I'm not going to spoil it here. It's a 6-minute read, but again, it's very interesting if you never come across this term before. It is impossible to spend 24/7 learning how to code. And this is a reason why I thought I'd wrap this video up by giving you 3 movie recommendations you can chill out and watch if it's the holiday season for you too. Now, these movies are all tech and computer related, and these are movies that I thought were going to be very dull and boring when I sat down and watched them. However, all 3 stories are super interesting, and these movies are well worth a watch if they've flown under your radar. My first recommendation is Tetris, and I found this surprisingly good if I'm honest. Now, when I heard about a movie about how Tetris got released on Nintendo, it didn't sound too interesting, but literally this film is like a spy movie. Now, the amount of stuff that happened to make Tetris appear on Nintendo, it sounds like a made up story, but it's all true and based on true events. So if you haven't seen it, it's on Apple. I recommend checking it out because it's a great movie. My second recommendation is also a video game inspired movie, and it's called Gran Turismo. Now, unlike Tetris, where it was based on how the game was made, Gran Turismo is based on a real world, real life competition that was run on Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 2, 3, whatever it was. And the winner of that competition had a chance to become a real world racing driver. So I'm not going to spoil the film for you, but again, this is another unbelievable story that you could never imagine actually happened in the real world. It's really surprisingly good, so it's worth checking out. My final recommendation is a film called BlackBerry, and this is a story about the smartphone. So you can see IMDb 7.4. It's a surprisingly good and interesting story about a company that goes from nothing to doing incredibly well, back to not doing great again. Again, if you haven't seen it, this is definitely worth a watch. And that brings us to the end of my 2023 review. And I think to summarize everything, if you're a C#, .NET or Windows developer, this year has been really positive. I also think that next year looks really positive, and this is a big change of the bygone days of .NET 4 where nothing really changed for ages and ages. Now, before you leave, if you haven't, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. I have a bunch of really cool, interesting ideas for 2024, so you don't want to miss out on that. I also want to take this time to say that if you have followed my channel and you watch my videos regularly for however long, then I really want to say thank you very much. Sometimes it is a struggle to try and get a video out every single week, especially when you've got a job and a baby and an angry wife at times. And it's the feedback whenever I see people or the emails or the comments that keep me going. And I really do appreciate every single time that anyone feeds back. And I hope you have an amazing 2024. So until next year, happy coding.